Tonight, the spotlight is on India's startup story, a journey that has moved from ambition to assertion. Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted that he called India's vibrant and inclusive startup ecosystem, saying it is empowering creators and opening up innumerable opportunities on the path to a Viksit Bharat, speaking at a mega event marking a decade of the flagship program Startup India. What are we really looking at? This is what Prime Minister said, that it's been a revolution in 10 years, from 500 to 2 lakh plus startups in just about a decade, from 4 unicorns in 2014 to 125 unicorns as we speak now. 44,000 new startups registered in 2025 alone, the highest in the country in a single year. Risk-taking, once discouraged, is mainstream now, with over 45% startups featuring women in leadership roles. Mr. Modi said the ecosystem that started with 4 startups in 2014 has grown and multiplied at several levels. Let's just look at some of the data that has come forward. Third largest startup global ecosystem. India is the third in global tech startup funding, and it's the 6th among deep tech ecosystems, well, 38th in global innovation index. Before we go any further, let's listen in to what Prime Minister said.
अब हमें भविष्य के लिए तैयार होना होगा, हमें नए आइडियाज पर काम करने की जरूरत है। आज कई ऐसे डोमेन्स उभर रहे हैं जो कल देश में इकोनॉमिक सिक्योरिटी और स्ट्रेटेजिक ऑटोनॉमी में अहम रोल निभाएंगे। एआई का उदाहरण हमारे सामने है। जो राष्ट्र एआई रिवॉल्यूशन में जितना आगे होगा, उसके पास उतना ही एडवांटेज होगा। भारत के लिए ये काम हमारे स्टार्टअप्स को करना है।
Well, the comment comes as the Startup India initiative completes 10 years. Launched in 2016, the program set out to simplify regulations, improve access to capital, and build a culture of innovation. A decade later, India today ranks among the world's top startup ecosystems, home to tens of thousands of recognized startups, dozens of unicorns, innovation hubs, tier 2, tier cities, all of them included. In fact, look at Bengaluru, it's ranked 10th globally. New Delhi is ranked 11th globally. Mumbai is ranked 18th globally. Hyderabad is ranked 70th globally. Pune ranked 79th. You have Chennai, Ahmedabad, Jaipur further down, but all within the top 100 cities globally. The government argues this is no longer just about valuation of venture capital, but about inclusive growth. But what do these rankings talk about? Does India have the very DNA to make it a startup nation? Which direction are we really headed to? Has the Startup India initiative delivered on its promise over the last decade? I'm being joined at this point by Lord Matthias, who's an angel investor and business strategist, as well as an independent director. I'm also being joined by Mithali Nikor, who's a founder and chief economist, Nikor Associates. Vijay Tirumalai, who is a CEO for Goldwater Global. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining me. Good to see you all after a while. Well, let me just straight go to you, Lord Matthias. A very simple thing to ask. You know, we heard what the Prime Minister said today. It felt good. But as somebody who's been part of this journey right through, how do you look at it?
Thanks, Neha. Great to be back at your show. I think it's truly a landmark. If there's something that India can truly be proud about in the last decade, I think it's really initializing and kicking off the startup culture. And I think, you know, and one has to, aside from the politics of the issue, one has to concede that the Prime Minister has played a key role. But let me look at 4 or 5 things that have changed in the last decade. I think one is the kicking off of the startup culture with things like Startup India. But more than that, I think there is the great digital public infrastructure that has enabled this, right from the telecom revolution, and more specifically, I think India stack, right? The fact that today about 700 million Indians can transact seamlessly. I think that's become a very big thing. The second big change is really the availability of risk capital. The fact that a young entrepreneur coming out of college can aspire to be an entrepreneur, unlike in the past, when he can actually go out seeking investors, ranging from micro capital, angel investors, early stage. I think that's been a significant part. I think thirdly, and most important, I think startups have become cool. The whole culture of acceptance, right? Things like shows that are, talking about startup founders. I think suddenly the combination of India's great digital public infrastructure, the whole concept of the fact that you can be an entrepreneur where you risk capital, the aspirations of a young population. I think all this is combined to really make India, I know we're not the largest, but among the best startup nations in the world. And I think the Prime Minister and what he's done in the last decade have played a very, very critical role.
That's interesting. Something that many people across the world are really talking about. Very quickly, Mithali Nikor, to you. You're a woman leader. We've heard Prime Minister talk today about how over 40%, 45% startups feature women in leadership roles, and about how unicorns, 4 unicorns in 2014 to 125 plus unicorns as we speak. How do you see the journey of women in these startups and then moving further to the unicorn stage?
So first of all, Sneha, thank you so much for having me on your show. And truly, I agree with Lloyd that, 10 years of Startup India, it literally feels like we just begun. We've just, I mean, it feels like it hasn't been 10 years. The Startup India mission is also no longer a startup. It's gone into, maturity stage. But I think when we're talking about women's leadership, see, I would say the glass is definitely half full as opposed to half empty. There have been a lot of progress in the last 10 years. What we've seen is, firstly, for women, particularly this risk taking has always been very dangerous because families are always telling you, in case your business doesn't work, just get married and then don't try again. So that clock is always ticking. There's always that biological clock and family clock, and which is constantly telling you, you can't experiment, you can't take a risk. I think that's really changing. That conversation is really changing. The second thing which is changing hugely is men and women working together to start companies. And many cases, of course, we see couples doing this. We see that, the wife and the husband are working together, but you also have examples of college friends and, colleagues, etc., coming together and starting businesses. This is very important as a role model effect for young women because it's not always you'll find a husband who wants to do a business with you.
Fair enough.
You might want to do it with a colleague. So I think there's been a lot of progress in this area, but of course, much more still needs to be done.
Nikore, what's very interesting is, even as you're having this conversation and you are at the stature where you are, and so many women have reached where we are, but when we talk about women in leadership positions and even in startup managerial positions, ownership positions, husbands get dragged in. It will not happen with conversations about husbands. That's also very telling, Mithali.
No, absolutely. And, when we look at the issues that women entrepreneurs are uniquely having, the care economy is one issue that, I think a lot of women entrepreneurs are also trying to solve
Absolutely.
for, going and understanding that, you need to have more and more businesses actually that cater to the care economy, whether it's childcare, whether it's elder care. And that's, again, a big area we're seeing a lot of push in. But I also interact with a number of women founders who are second generation, in their families. They're taking their family businesses ahead, and those are completely in sectors like logistics, in tech, and in manufacturing. So they have a completely different set of challenges, but they are facing them and they're going ahead.
Sure. Vijay Thirumalai, when we talk about the Indian startup and the startup ecosystem, it's going to be interesting to see what's your perspective, because you are out of India with a very strong India Startup Connect as well. How do you look at where India is positioned today in the startup ecosystem?
Sneha, absolute pleasure having with you on the show, right? So thank you for inviting me. So one thing is, right, we operate across 3, 4 geographies, right? US, Canada, India, and some part of Middle East as well, right? So uh, Indian startup ecosystem probably I would say is just second to US, and we're getting there, right? So I think we have one of the most vibrant startup ecosystem, both Lloyd and Mitali mentioned, right? One thing which is actually happening is risk capital is available for entrepreneurship, right? But all the vintage of 2014, 15 vintage, they are getting exits. Let me give you a perspective, right? So Walmart invested in Flipkart at 13, $14 billion valuation. They said it's one of the best stories out there. But now look at Flipkart. After PhonePe itself will be valued so much, right? So the kind of value creation happening, not just in the private space, but in the public space, that is actually what is driving it, right? You can actually fund it and list it within from inception to listing. The timeline is as less as about 5 to 7 years. That is phenomenal. Think of it, right? You have an idea with a business plan. You go to an angel investor. I invest in so many startup funds. I invest in startups myself. It's one of the most largest asset class for me in my portfolio, right? Startup investments, right? So think of it from inception to listing 5, 7 years. That is phenomenal. That even US cannot offer, right? In US, you have to at least have $1 billion value revenues to successfully list so that you don't lose value.
Right.
In India, with both the SME as well as public market listing, you don't need to have so much. Right. The
Right.
bar for listing has gone down. And one more part is that startups, I think this we are seeing increasingly, right? Used to have a Delaware holdco, India opco, right? Now startup founders are saying we don't want to go to Delaware, right? We'll make a headquarters in India. And that is a sea change.
Interesting.
Even software companies, AI
Interesting.
companies, they're saying we'll do an India first company. That's a phenomenal change because money is not going outside India. You're not having a Delaware holdco. You can start in India,
Right.
do business in India, and list in India. That's a phenomenal change we're seeing right now.
Lord Matthias, this is make in India, truly make in India, of what Vijay is really talking. But another aspect I want to get you on is, one is the number of startups that get registered. Then is the number of startups that mature. And then are those that make it to unicorns. When you look at the global scenario, how is India positioned on this?
Great question, Sneha. I think while the growth has been phenomenal, and like I said, the culture has truly caught on. And as Vijay pointed out, I think startups create more startups, right? When, like you mentioned, when Walmart acquired Flipkart, that created a whole lot of dollar millionaires. A lot of them didn't want to put them in bonds and post office savings. They went back and invested right back. So that culture has created, which is positive. I think that's something to celebrate. And also the fact that today young graduates are very comfortable going up for starting up.